Why is this visit so important for US and Saudi businesses? And what does it mean for trade between the two countries? Well, we can speak now to the Executive Director of the American Chamber of Commerce, Saudi Arabia. Liz Beneski, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. A real pleasure having you with us. Let's start by talking about US investment in Saudi Arabia. How has US interest and investment grown over the years?
Sure. Well, thank you, Tom, for having us. And it's a pleasure to welcome the American Chamber of Commerce, Saudi Arabia, also known as AmCham. We've been around for about 35 years, and we are a nonprofit, non-government, paid membership trade organization focused on the bilateral trade relationship between U.S. companies and Saudi Arabia in both directions. So this Trump visit comes at a very exciting time. With over 100 years history between our countries, trade has always been the lifeblood of the relationship. And though it has waxed and waned over those 100 years, it's really seen a steady growth since 2017 through 2020, despite the pandemic. And it's had its ups and downs, most certainly, but we are very hopeful that this bilateral trade investment relationship between both countries' leaders is going to lead to a long-term and sustained investment in those key critical industries upon which AmCham Saudi Arabia currently focuses.
Okay, Liz, let's just talk about you for a moment, because you came to AmCham Saudi Arabia from Abu Dhabi, where I gather you spent a number of years. And I'm just wondering whether you can see any similarities, any parallels that you can draw perhaps between the economies of the UAE and Saudi Arabia.
What a wonderful question. Certainly, this entire region, whether it's Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates, have one thing in common, and that's long-term vision and a lot of aspiration and energy and youth behind it. And so, as in the UAE, Saudi Arabia has been systemically investing in its infrastructure, divesting its just from the energy infrastructure, moving towards the AI technology, advanced manufacturing, and other things they haven't even thought of, very similar to the UAE. So it's exciting to be a part of a region that continually is reinventing itself in reaction to the needs not only of today, but on anticipation of what's going to come tomorrow. And Saudi Arabia is such a larger market than the UAE. It's going to have a lasting global impact, I believe, in a far shorter time than people recognize.
Okay, let's keep talking about you, because you spent years working, I believe, in the hospitality industry in the United States. And Saudi Arabia is, of course, going through a massive transformation, building up the tourism sector, which is a key pillar of Vision 2030. What's your take on how they're getting on with regards to developing this particular sector, Liz?
Well, I have seen this type of aspiration before. In fact, just yesterday, a large announcement was made from a major U.S. company to our neighbor, the UAE. I think that the Alula project is exciting. The Diriyah downtown development in Riyadh is extraordinary. I just had the occasion to visit Jeddah, and what I can say from my experience in the hospitality industry is keep going, Saudi Arabia. These growth projects are unique. They're driving interest into the country, and they will enable people who've never thought to travel to this part of the world to come and experience not only the culture and the heritage, but the best world-class entertainment. Saudi Arabia has F1. Saudi Arabia has unbelievable concerts, Middle Beast, for example. And soon I hope we'll see more cultural attention given to perhaps a mashup between an Ayala dance and ballet, or opera and Arabic poetry. Who knows what the future holds? But I do know this: an investment in the hospitality sector is a winner. Look at Riyadh Air, for example. It's going to come right out of the gate and be a world-class competitor against the likes of, say, an Emirates or an Etihad. I have to say I'm quite impressed and very bullish about it.
Yeah, Liz, actually, we've been talking a lot about Riyadh Air the last couple of weeks here on the Riyal Deal. We had the CEO just a couple of weeks ago, and in our last episode, we were talking about tourism in Jeddah. So you're absolutely on the pulse there. I just wanted to ask you about President Trump and his decision to make Saudi Arabia the first stop of his first scheduled foreign trip since he returned to the White House in January. What does that decision say, do you think, about the strength of the US-Saudi relationship?
Well, it certainly is a big statement, isn't it, Tom? But we have to remember that Saudi Arabia as a whole, it's been reported, has over $770 billion invested into the United States. So it makes sense that President Trump, in his second term, would reach back to his friend and say, can we do more together? And so apparently this deal was struck. And I think that's an indication of the belief systems aligned for co-investment and to build a bridge using trade between the Middle East and the United States. It also is a very complimentary move on behalf of the presidential administration to bring so many secretaries and CEOs, as it is reported, to this very important forum and opportunity next week. I think it's a compliment to the Saudi people, and it further enhances the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia.
Okay, Liz, we'll talk a bit more about that forum, Tuesday's forum, in just a moment. But I wanted to ask you what I just asked Ali a moment ago about what President Trump has been saying. He's been teasing what he says is this very, very big positive announcement that's going to be made. Any clues from your side as to what he might have in mind?
Well, there's been a lot of coffee talk about that for the past 24 hours, and I would be remiss if I reported any rumor or conjecture. All we know is that it will be a really big announcement in the president's eyes, and we do hope that it's of positive nature for this region. There is no way for us to know what goes on behind those closed doors, but we're looking forward to it being an impactful statement.
Okay, Liz, what sort of a welcome do you think President Trump will get there in Saudi Arabia?
Oh, I hope it's his favorite word. Huge. I mean, he loves being adulated, and I hope that we will, as always, be received well when he arrives in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if he'll have the time for the usual pomp and circumstance, but I have no doubt that His Highness Mohammed bin Salman will roll out the red carpet, or in this case, the green and white carpet, and welcome the American contingency. And I truly look forward to being witness to that. I'm sure it will be a very special day on May the 13th.
And what do you think, compared to what President Trump saw 9 years ago when he visited Saudi Arabia on what was, of course, the first trip of his first term in office? I mean, how different is the country, Saudi Arabia, compared to how it was, let's say, 9 years ago?
Well, I mean, Saudi Arabia has grown by leaps and bounds. I'm often quoted as saying that 1 year in the kingdom is like 3 years anywhere else in the world. Saudi has blossomed. And I think also the president and his entourage will be quite surprised at the modernity and scale of growth that have occurred in the past 9 years. So whether it's the beautiful arrival into Riyadh Airport, if that's so where he is, into seeing the metro that was built in record time. There's no doubt as he looks out across the glittering towers rising from the desert and the projects that are in Riyadh, if he takes a tour to Jeddah, he will be impressed that Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has continued to follow its path of growth and aspiration.
I'm guessing, Liz, this visit's going to be keeping you very busy indeed. What's AmCham's role throughout the presidential visit?
What a wonderful question. Now, because we're a nonprofit, non-government organization, but made up of over 700 members, you can imagine that every single American company is very involved with this visit. We are working lockstep alongside our partners, such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Saudi Business Council, to ensure that we maximize the amount of American companies, representatives, and their teams that can get involved with this visit. We hope that we will have a lot of opportunity for engagement with our local Saudi partners, and with all this excitement, actually achieve things, not just talk the talk, but actually walk the walk, get the followers follow-up visits, get everything moving forward. And it's very, very important to us that we do that in key sectors such as healthcare, AI, defense, and energy. And I just also would say mining, because an agreement was just drawn with mining. These are sectors that we have a lot of members in, and we hope to keep driving and moving forward. And maybe this Trump visit will accelerate that.
Okay, let's go back to talking about that US-Saudi Investment Forum, which is going to happen on Tuesday. A little earlier on, you talked about it being a two-way or mutual sort of a forum. A lot of people using that kind of language as well to describe it, because of course they're going to be representatives from both sides, aren't they? They're going to be prominent Saudi ministers, and then you've got this enormous US delegation, which reports say include people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Fink, Sam Altman, amongst others. What do you think is going to come out of that forum, and why do you think there's so much accent on the idea of it being a two-way investment opportunity?
Well, certainly there's a lot of excitement. Let's start there. I mean, business has not always been, shall we say, sexy. And now trade is very much on the tip of everyone's tongue. So it's exciting to see this deals mentality come to play. But we all know that deals are just the tip of the iceberg. What has to happen is that we have to have the ministerial and CEO level make these deals and enact the pathways so we can get the real work done. And that's what AmCham does. We help to enable the local efforts between the US companies and our local partners to ensure that those deals are completed to fruition, whether it's building a pharmaceutical, a manufacturing plant, whether that's working on an AI chips production line, whether that's exploring new blue, green, purple, orange, whatever energies. We have to work together. And I find this forum so exciting because it's attracting so many thousands of people. I think it's going to foster an engagement level that maybe we've never seen before. Everyone kind of works in silos. And now can you imagine all the US companies and all the Saudi partners, whether they're MISA or PIF or any ministry, will be in one room that's very energetic. And I really look forward to what sort of conversations, but more important, outcomes will be achieved.
Okay, Liz, just looking back at how US-Saudi economic relations have evolved during the last 5 years, what's your sense of how the relationship is evolving and how you see this forum shaping that relationship for the next 5 years?
Well, 5 years ago, we were just hovering on the pandemic year. We were coming off of what was a very exciting period of 2019. There was great hope for growth and acceleration. And then unfortunately came the global pandemic. We've only just started to rebound as per the economic data and was projected by economists from that crazy bounce of the pandemic. So now we are pretty much where we were in 2019. Where do we go? Well, if we're having such a forum, to me, it's opening the gates of the Oz, the city of Oz. All is before us to get this taken care of. And all is before us if we have the tools, the resources, and the relationships, plus the blessings of both governments. There is no reason why both US and Saudi companies could not work together and achieve things using that leapfrog schedule I said earlier. 1 year in Saudi is 3 elsewhere. We need to get trade to that as well.
Okay, of course, Saudi Arabia's got huge ambitions, and we talk a lot about Vision 2030 on this program, and indeed right across this channel. Tell us a bit about how AmCham and how American companies generally fit into that vision, Liz.
It's a great question. As you know, the United States of America has a very unique three-tiered system of government. And a lot of our traditional trades, such as the defense sector, even some highly protected pharmaceutical information, intellectual property, we'll call it. These are very highly regulated by one sector of our government. So the United States does have a significant regulatory hump to overcome. And this is to protect both the creator of the product and the purchaser of the product. And this is to create the uniqueness of that relationship. Now, when we come to Saudi, Saudi is very aspirational, but too wishes to have many American products. Hopefully, something like this forum will uncover or unlock some unique pathways, some benefits to the relationship. I do not work in government, but from a trade point of view, were we successful in identifying challenges which create opportunities and creating a reward for this unique relationship? I can certainly see where we can move that forward in that aspiration quicker and to the benefit of both countries.
Okay, Liz, do you think it's getting easier on the whole for US firms to invest and operate in Saudi Arabia?
No, no. And that's not the fault of Saudi. Saudi has thrown open its doors and welcomed us, most certainly. I mean, from a personal investment standpoint, whether you wish to, look at the stock exchange or make a real estate investment, sure, there's a little red tape, but the same exists in the United States. I think I'm very bullish on Saudi. But American firms have to learn also how to have more patience and to go ahead and come over those humps, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago. People don't have a lot of patience these days. I know time is precious, but we've got to work together to navigate. And I've lived in the Middle East for 22 years. Believe me, it's far better today than it ever has been.
Okay, Liz, just to sum up this conversation in a couple of words, why is this relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia so important?
Long-term friendship and long-term goals equals long-term success for everyone. That's why, Tom.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Liz Beneski, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Shukran, Tom.